we suggest you call us as soon as possible because we've dealt with a lot of these attacks. We can help you mitigate some of the attack, hopefully stop it from spreading, and just give you some ideas in general. But also, we want to be part of the process. We want to be part of that communication. We want to see what are the bad guys asking for, what are those Bitcoin wallets that they're sending you, what are the ways they're communicating with you. That all adds intel to us and information that helps us track them down.
This is your host, Swapnil Bhartia, and welcome to another episode of CISO Insights. And today we have with us Steve Winterfeld, Advisory CISO at Akamai, and Derek Booth, Special Agent with the United States Secret Service. Steve, Derek, it's great to have you both on the show.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here.
It's my pleasure and honor to host you folks here today. I would like to start with, if you can just talk a bit about what is the mission goal of United States Secret Service and especially Federal Law Enforcement Authority?
So our mission, most people know us to protect the president and the national leaders of our country. But we also, part of our mission, we have a dual mission, and part of that mission is to safeguard the financial infrastructure, the payment systems, and the economy, to keep maintaining the integrity of the economy. So a big part of that now is cybercrime. Cybercrime is one of our primary goals and primary missions and primary investigations that we pursue. So on top of the protection of people, we protect payment systems.
And Steve, if you can talk about how do you see these agencies from a CISO's perspective?
If we're hit, one of the things we're going to have to do is work with law enforcement agencies. And I will tell you that the FBI, DHS, and the Secret Service are all great organizations to work with. And so it's important to know when to contact them, how to contact them, what to expect. And so Derek and I have worked a couple times together. I obviously have a relationship with them in case I ever need them, but we also want to emphasize where the value is to have that partnership.
Which agencies you closely work with when it comes to not only protecting the president, but as you said, other duties also there to protect financial economy. So I just want to understand the collaboration that is there.
One of our big pushes is I coordinate the cyber fraud task force here in the Rocky Mountain region. So we coordinate with mostly state and locals. We are there to support them and help them in anything that they come across. But also we do work, as Steve said, we work with the FBI, with HSI, CISA, those federal organizations to help stop network intrusion, deter the spread of whether it's malware, ransomware, whatever it may be. It's across the board. And our task force, we also work with private entities. We have many guys like Steve on our board or on our task force, network security managers, CISOs, deputy CISOs. They want to know what's going on. They want to be in the world of intel, and we can pass that on to them as well as they can help us. They're the experts when it comes to network security, and so we can tap into their resources and their knowledge and their expertise as well when we need it.
And I will add that that it is a great partnership. If you reach out to one agency, they're not the right agency, or there is another agency that specializes in the type of crime you're experiencing. They do that handoff. DHS has great educational assets. They all have a little bit of a different skill set, but it is one team.
Derek, from your perspective, how you have seen security evolve, where we will also talk about, once again, the partnership between public and private sector, but the evolution of security, which may make your job easy as well, because people now understand security as well.
Yeah, definitely. And things have evolved dramatically. I just celebrated 25 years on the job, and going back 25 years has changed incredibly. But even just the last 5 to 10 years, the cybercrime world it's like somebody hit fast forward, because the amount of attacks, whether they're ransomware attacks, business email compromise, pig butchering, investment scams, everything has just exploded. And it makes total sense because the payoff for the threat actor or the criminal is that much greater. They can dedicate time instead of trying to steal credit cards or print counterfeit money. If they can hack into your system, the payoff could be in the millions or billions. So it makes sense. And on top of that, the world is changing because now we're even more connected. We're connected with, Eastern Europe and Asia and Africa and some of those countries even more and more every day. And by doing that, we expose ourselves, we expose our companies, we expose our infrastructure. And so that's how I think that's probably the greatest change is the more we've connected with the world, the more the world can commit more crime against anybody they want. And so, it's gotten dramatic. The numbers just continue to increase. IC3's numbers, they just released their report not too long ago. I believe it was $12.9 billion in overall cybercrime loss, which is just crazy. It's just growing exponentially. And some of those attacks that we're seeing are growing every day. Business email compromise has gone up. Investment scams have gone up dramatically. Crypto and some of those scams are just flat out investment scams where they're just conning the person. We call it now. Pig butchering is the sexy term now. If I can get a hold of you, I can make contact with you and gain your trust, and I can get you to invest in whatever it is, whether it's just a flat out bogus account or, and this has evolved from romance scams, elderly scams, tech scams, Leo scams, law enforcement officer scams. It's even diving into youth, into kids. Sextortion is a big thing that's hitting right now. And all of that is just to get the money. And so those numbers all continue to increase. Investment scams went up, I think, 135% this last year. Most of that is crypto. And a lot of that is in the past, it was a lot of elderly people being the victims. It's not so much anymore because a lot of people just want that quick hit. They want money. So bad guys able to tap into a little bit of that greed side of life and con us into investing in crypto stocks or just investments, and able to grab a hold of us. And once they do, they've got us, because now once they get a piece of you, they start small, just like in years past, they'll start small, $500, $1,000 here or there, and then once they kind of get their hooks into you, they've got you, and they're just going to keep leading you along.
Over the last 25 years, the threat has evolved so much. It went from hackers to now we have hacktivists, we have cyber criminal groups. If you go up to MITRE, I think there's over 100 tracked cyber criminal groups. We have nation states. It's just such a spectrum of people that are coming after us, and it is no longer you have to be geographically near somebody to commit a crime. Derek, that's such a valid point. And it is huge impact. Pig butchering, ransomware, these are major impacts. And finally, the innovation. The threat is constantly innovating. I recently actually got a postcard that is trying to convince me to join Amazon as a shopper, which I can't believe that the cyber criminals are sending me postcards. Every time I turn around, they continue to innovate.
Just to look at the commercial as well as state-sponsored activities. Right now, there are a lot of conflict going on in the world, Middle East, Europe. There might be conflict in Asia as well. Have you also seen a spike in state-sponsored or kind of nationalistic attacks on the infrastructure? And if yes, are these trends you feel that, hey, this is what happens, or they're disturbing, we should be worried about them?
Again, there's a spectrum here. The war in Ukraine is such that we've watched hacker groups in Russia become what I would call privateers. If you remember back in the day of sailing ships, a pirate ship could be commissioned by a state to become part of their flotilla, their navy, and they would basically get profits from what other ships they captured. So that they were a criminal group that became a nation's asset. We're seeing the same thing with groups like KillNet. KillNet was a denial of service group. They then started acting in national interest for Russia, attacking Eastern or Western European financial institutions. And basically in Akamai, we put out a State of the Internet report. And one of the things we highlight is America used to be the most attacked for DDoS. Now it's Western Europe, and it's driven primarily through national interest.
And from your perspective, Derek, how do you see these threats emerging, and much of this is your concern?
No, it's a great concern because we're seeing, we mentioned a lot Ukraine, we mentioned Russia, we haven't mentioned China, I don't think, or North Korea or Iran, and those are huge actors out there. We've seen them attack private businesses. We've seen them try to get into government agencies. And like we mentioned before, the world is evolving and they're just looking for the payoff. They're going to go where the money is. And if they can infiltrate a company and, smoke them for millions of dollars through a ransomware attack, they're just going to continue. And it's disheartening because these are private companies just trying to make a living, and you have nation states attacking them. And so I think we need some help. And that's how we work as a task force. We try to help each other as much as we can. I'll be honest, sometimes it feels like we're kind of running uphill in the sand, but I think hopefully we'll get some help from our government leaders to attack some of these countries.
And earlier, as we were also talking about how the world is evolving, we live in a connected world, whether we talk about EVs, which are more or less like computers on wheels, airlines. So our infrastructure is also connected. What kind of threat do you see is there, and how secure we are? I mean, how comfortable people should be that, yes, the risk is rising, but there are protections in place. What you can share and not share.
I get in trouble when I speak for these kind of things because sometimes I scare people. So I don't want to do that right here. I think everybody should be able to sleep at night, no problem. And we've got great people. We've got great systems set up in our infrastructure. CISO does a great job out there, which is the DHS arm of network security, and they're very proactive. They're very proactive, especially with the infrastructure companies and organizations, and they do a great job. Some of these have been hit. SolarWinds was a couple years ago, took a big hit, but I think for the most part, life is good. As we mentioned, bad guys are evolving, so we have to evolve with them. And so working as a team, make it a team effort is a huge part of this. And other than that, I can't, I don't have all of the intel. I don't sit in a JIOC or a SOC or something that gets the data every single day. I see, I get stuff that's maybe 3 or 4 days later after the fact from some of our private companies and then from our SOC. And some of those they're attacking those infrastructure systems and organizations, but mostly what we're seeing is the private side, private companies, private businesses.
From a commercial side, I would say, I can't stop everything, but I try to stop the things that have the big impacts. And so right now I look for where crime scales. I think the biggest impact is still probably from the corporate side, ransomware. Losing our operational capability to run our business. There are so many different fraud techniques out there. I know a lot of the people on the commercial side are dealing with return fraud or policy fraud. And sometimes that can scale, especially if there's an API involved. On the personal side, as I look towards my loved ones, my parents, pig butchering is what I'm trying to make sure they understand, and we've mentioned that a couple times. And it's basically the short con versus a long con. The short con is I convince you to give me all the money in your bank account. The long con is I get you to take out a second mortgage. I get you to, cash in your 401k. I take all your wealth. And so it really can be traumatic. We've mentioned IC3 before. It is not only where you would go to report an incident, it's also got a great annual report. And you can look in there and see and share with your leadership some of the stats around what kind of crime is happening.
Steve, you and I had a discussion earlier about a lot of industries which are regulated. They have some duty to inform when the ransomware attack is there, whether they are going to make payments or not. What kind of processes are in place so as to make it easier for them so they can easily contact law enforcement authorities, and they should also know how much to share, what to share, And also, I remember, Steve, you said that, once you are attacked, you pin a target on your back. You will be attacked against, not just you paid it and you're like, now no one's going to touch it.
We're always happy, as Steve mentioned, we love to partner up. So the quicker you can call us, the better off. And we try to push to, hey, be proactive and try to get to know us a little bit before, the attack happens. So that when it does happen, we already know each other, you know what to expect. We'd love to be part of your incident response plan. We're happy to sit down. We're happy to present any kind of educational or training material you would like to have for your own companies or even as a group. And at the end of the day, we need the information as quick as possible, just so we can try to deter it and stop it if we can. We're not an incident response organization, but we're there to stop and deter the problem, the attack. And if we can get the intelligence back to, say, our JIOC or our SOC, and help spread the word, and to our other partners, to DHS, FBI, whoever it might be, all the better. And and there's kind of a stigma that we're going to come in and stomp all over things and stop your business. That's the last thing we want to do. What we want to do is keep you rolling. We want to find the threat actor, find the criminal, arrest him if possible. If we can't find him, then at least let's stop the bleeding, and or find the criminal, and then try to get an arrest warrant. I mean, that's us at the end of the day. Sometimes that can take years. Sometimes we can't even get to that person wherever they are if they're in a non-extraditable country. But at least we can get the word out to others, and hopefully somebody else doesn't fall for the same attack. So yeah, I mean, the quicker you can get to us, the better off we are. We love to build a relationship with you. A couple phone calls, a couple emails is all it takes. We have task force meetings. We try to do quarterly, if not semi-annually, meet together and social network a little bit, get to know each other, and just gain your trust. And I always say, we mention our other partners. People say, well, who should I call? And I always say, call who you're comfortable with. Call who you've got that relationship with. Because as Steve mentioned, we're going to call each other. If you call CISO, CISO is going to let us know. You call FBI, vice versa. And we can help each other in the long run.
There are two ways you can end up talking to law enforcement. The first is they knock on your door, and you know how old I am when I say they knock on your door. They contact you, and they say, we believe that you're being attacked. We found information that you're compromised. So that's one course of action. That's one playbook you need to have of if you're contacted and they're providing you with information. The other is if I've had a serious incident and I'm going to end up in a class action lawsuit, one of the questions I'm going to be asked is, when and how did you collaborate with law enforcement? And so that's the other side of your playbook, is to knowing when and how, and making sure that you've just done the right thing and you're able to defend your process.
What kind of incentives, carrots and sticks that are there to encourage companies to come forth and work with law enforcement as well?
The only thing we can say is, as Steve just mentioned, is doing the right thing, and is trying to help your neighbor or your friend down the road, or maybe you have another company or a family company or something, because there's nothing we can do to incentivize or to give you, like we're not going to give you a discount on your federal taxes or anything like that. We've tried. I promise you. I'm joking. So the only thing is to help. If you help us, hopefully we can help the next guy down the road. And some people I get it. They're nervous about calling us. They don't want the word to get out. We're not going to get the word out. We're going to get the word out to law enforcement. We're not going to put the word out to the press, to the media, to the world, because that's not what we do. We don't want the bad guy to even know that, hey, we know about it right now. We want to continue to go, stealth mode as long as we can. But hopefully, if we can help you today and, or just at least get the information, who knows who we can help tomorrow or next week or next month. And I truly believe that's the only way we're going to overcome a lot of these attacks, is by helping each other, by partnering up. If a bank gets robbed, they're gonna tell their partners, hey, this is what happened. This is how the bank robbers came through the door. These are the weapons that they used. This is how much money they took. Did they go to the vault? They're going to share intel with the other banks. And that's the only way we're going to share it here with between companies, between agencies and organizations.
I will add, on the carrot side, you may get actionable intelligence from them. They may share, if it's a ransomware group they have the key to, they can share the key. If it's a criminal group that they say, well, they also do XYZ, you can go look in your logs for XYZ. On the stick side, a lot of it is going to be around when you're asked, what did you do about this? Well, if somebody stole something from you, why didn't you report it to the police? And so when you're talking about the brand that you just mentioned, it is kind of a necessity to say, no, we did the right thing.
Earlier, it was also that, as you're saying, Derek, that attackers, they also want quick, profit. They don't want to engage with something long-term. They also look at low-hanging fruits. Can it also be done something, especially if we just focus on ransomware, to kind of decrease the incentive? Can we make it illegal to pay ransomware kind of stuff? What can we do to kind of increase the height of the low-hanging fruits? So even the bad actors, they're like, hey, it's too much effort to go after that. Let's look at something else. Can something be done from that?
No, that's a great question. And I know there's been talk about legislation. I know there's some countries, I'm thinking the UK, and I might be wrong, I'm quoting the wrong country, but I'm thinking they're making it illegal to make ransomware payments for that very reason. I mean, it's understandable. A company gets hit, they want to just get back up and rolling. But if they pay that ransom, that just furthers the bad guy. It just increases his bank account, and it pushes it down, kicks the can down the road, as we used to say as a kid. So there are things we could do. It's going to have to come from legislation. And I know the SEC is trying to make it mandatory for companies to report and to notify the victims and their customers. That hasn't garnered the teeth that it needs to yet, but I know they're pushing. So hopefully the same thing with ransomware payments as well. You could look at tape. If you pay ransomware, it's going to be taxed. I'm just throwing that. That's just an idea. But at the same time, I feel for those business owners. I feel for those who have been hit, because they're just trying to stay afloat and try to keep moving. And we mentioned businesses, but also there's so many organizations, health organizations, and municipalities. Municipalities get hit quite a bit just because they're so desperate, because it affects, as Steve said, it affects so many people. They get a bigger bang for their buck. And so I feel for them. I feel for those municipalities. At the same time, I think something needs to be done. I'm not a legislator, but I've got some ideas if they listen to me.
On the what could you do side, I'm going to take a little bit more of a technical approach. I think the first thing you want to do is get visibility. You can't protect what you don't know about. Things like a lot of our transformation is around APIs. Make sure you have visibility and mitigations there. Minimize the impact, things like, microsegmentation as part of zero trust. On the more individual side, going back to the personal fraud or the romance fraud, pig butchering, whichever it is teaching situational awareness to our loved ones and those we care about to understand, when things don't make sense. We get in a fear cycle real quick. Derek was telling me about a story of a friend of his who called, and Derek said, just pause. Does this even make sense? And the guy's like, well, no, now that you say that doesn't make sense. But in the moment, if you don't have that culture of just pause for a second and ask yourself, would Amazon really send me a postcard to be a shopper? And should I go register all my information with them? Does that make sense?
We are talking about ransomware, where of course you will know because the attackers will reach out to you for payment. There are other kinds of attack also. By the time you realize it may be too late. So when should they reach out to law enforcement authority? What are the flags they should look at versus waiting for, hey, yes, the attack has happened, now the data has been compromised, or if something has triggered in their system because they have a lot of observability practices in place, a lot of other things are there. So what is the right time to escalate it, to reach out to the authorities?
We suggest you call us as soon as possible, because we've dealt with a lot of these attacks. We can help you. We can help you mitigate some of the attack, hopefully stop it from spreading, and just give you some ideas in general. But also, we want to be part of the system. We want to be part of the process. We want to be part of that communication. We want to see, what are the bad guys asking for? What are those Bitcoin wallets that they're sending you? what are the ways they're communicating with you. That all adds intel to us and information that helps us track them down. So I get it. Again, we've talked to a lot of people are nervous to call us because they think we're going to shut them down. That's the last thing we want to do. We want things to keep rolling. We can piggyback off of you very well. If you have an incident response company you've already contacted, keep rolling. And we like the information. We need IP addresses, email addresses, crypto wallets, things that can help us get to the bad guy. And the quicker you can get it to us, the quicker we can start working on it. And we can start asking questions around the country. Hey, who else is seeing this? This strain of ransomware. What else should we be looking at? Who should we be looking at? What other companies? What other affiliates do you have? Maybe bad guys going to jump to those. And in the beginning, or if you tell us right from the beginning, it's just going to help everybody increase our odds in stopping it.
Steve, if I ask you that, you talked about culture also. In addition to building a culture of security itself, should companies also build this culture of notifying, that they have relationship also with law enforcement authorities as well. So if something happens, they have all those contacts in places. So talk about the importance of culture, this side of culture when it comes to security.
I always struggle with the concept of a security culture, and you have concepts like a customer first culture. It ultimately comes back down to a risk culture and understanding across the board how we're managing risk, business risk, and the cyber impact to those business risk. I love the thought process of a strong cyber culture will eat social engineering for breakfast, and that is true. And so if you have people that think about risk and think about impacts and making smart decisions, I think that's the right way to go. And as we think about that, that's where we need to recognize that, the world has changed and we need to think about law enforcement as a partnership now. They're one of our partners in this ecosystem of cybersecurity. And Derek and I have been doing this for a couple of days, and that wasn't always true, but the world has changed, and that is true today.
Anything you want to add, Derek, there for the culture? Because when you reach out to companies, also, if you can also add to that cultural part, that when they do prepare to reach out to law enforcement, what are the things they should have handy? You did mention IP addresses. What else? What preparation they should have, and also what they can expect that, hey, you won't show up with a magic bullet. Hey, we wave the van, your problems are gone. So how they should prepare themselves and what they can expect.
We're looking for information. We want to know, hey, what do you know? What do you know right now? How did the bad guy get in? What have they taken? And how did they get out? And when they got out, where did they go? Where did the money go? Where did the credit card numbers go? Where did the PII go? That's all we're looking for is that basic data. So that's what we want. And whether that comes from you, whether it comes from your legal team, your incident response team, we don't really care who we're talking to. We just want to know what's going on and how can we help? If there's anything we can do to help, can we get word out? Can we help you contact certain partners? We have partners all over the world. We have working groups. We used to have a working group in the Ukraine. It's been shut down for a little bit. We have a working group in Interpol and in The Hague and in London and in Australia and Hong Kong. I'm missing a couple there, but we have partners all over the world. And so let us help you and let's stop the bleeding. One thing Steve just mentioned, it triggered a thought, is the world has changed so much now that literally one employee clicks on a link on a phishing email that can open the door to $1 million, even $1 billion loss. That has changed dramatically. In years ago, you had to, for a bad guy to get that kind of payout, they would have had to have, robbed a pretty good sized bank. And I think of the planning and all the effort and the energy and the attention bad guy would have to plan and spend in order to get that money. Now it's literally just if you can get somebody to send them a QR code or a link or a postcard, as Steve said, or anything, you can get them on the hook. They can open that door for you. And all of your network security stuff goes out the window. It's completely redundant if it's not, some of those, I know endpoint security software does a great job with some of that. But if I open the door and I open the back door through opening those links, and I invite the bad guy in. Think of the damage they can do and what that can do. So I just want to reiterate again what Steve's already said: training, education. You can't do enough of it for your employees, for your grandparents, your elderly parents, those who are out there who are the victims.
And as you're talking about the word history, there are two things I want to quickly talk about. One is that we are also, a lot of folks are working from home. They're bringing either they're using their own devices or through VPN, they are using the corporate devices, but they're also doing their personal work there, which can go. A second is that Gen AI, LLMs are becoming popular. So how do you see these two changes as new threats, or the attack surface is increasing?
There are capabilities that will be leveraged by people to commit crimes for the near term. They will make it easier to seem like a native or sound like the right person if you're doing in-person fraud. So I think they're going to have an impact over time, and it will just continue to grow. While it may have been very hard to be a social engineer, a few years ago, leveraging tools like that will rapidly increase, your believability.
The AI tools that are out there, they can take your voice, and they can even take your images, and they can manipulate that. So, we've seen some of those attacks on the local level. There's an old attack where bad guy calls, and pretends that, you're the grandson, you've been arrested, to grandma, and says you need to send money to get him out of jail. Well, if they can use those AI tools to counter or to mimic the grandson's voice, that just makes that even a bigger, crazier attack. And they clean up those phishing emails. A lot of those phishing emails you can decipher because of bad spelling, bad English, things that foreigners can't say or do very well. The AI can clean that up, and it makes it look a lot more proper, a lot more true. So
earlier you also mentioned investment scams. What are those? Because we mostly talk about the ransomware kind of things or direct attacks. Talk about that, how bad it is, and what companies can do.
Yeah, so business email compromise is a big attack right now. About 25% of our attacks that we're seeing in the country are business email or BEC attacks. Bad guys able to get into somebody's email system, manipulate the email, and then basically con, whether it's customers, vendors, people internally in the company, to wire money. Usually they get in and they'll change a bank account number and con a customer to wire the money to this new bank account without verifying it properly. So that's a big one. The billions of dollars that went up, I think 2.9 billion, I think, is with the attack this year, according to IC3. The good thing on the good side of that, the positive side, is if we can get notified, or if people can notify their banks through an indemnification letter or kill chain request, we can shut that down and get that money reversed. Usually it's a 72-hour window, but that's not always the case. We've had some success outside of that 72 hours due to, sometimes it's just pure luck. Other times it's people being, in the banking system being suspicious, and they stop those payments. So I say BEC is another big one up there with investment scams and ransomware. Before
we sign out, Derek, Steve, you have any closing thoughts to leave our audience with?
I'll jump in first. The resource we talked about today, IC3, I would go get familiar with that. I would look at that report. It's a tremendous resource. Make sure you have law enforcement in your playbooks. If you have the time, I would definitely establish relationships with them today. And finally, on the technical side, it is about that risk culture and minimizing impact.
Get to know your law enforcement agencies. Join one of our task forces. Become friends with your federal and your state and local partners that can help you out. Because when you get attacked, the last thing you need is to be scrambling for a number. Put us in your incident response plans. Put your phone numbers. Put our email addresses. Just add it in there, so when things hit, we're there, and we're there to help you. And then education. Training for employees, for organizations. Multi-factor authentication is a big thing. Make it triple authentication when it comes to large money transfers. It's amazing how many companies don't, they'll change a bank account number in a heartbeat without verifying that bank account is legit. So just, a couple extra steps when you're starting to wire large chunks of money. And then just, share the knowledge with your partners, with your friends, with your other companies. And, we're not in World War III, but cyber world, it kind of feels like it sometimes. It's just constant. And the only way we're going to attack and counterattack is helping each other and working as a team.
What are the proactive measures from the law enforcement authorities to engage the private sector to build that relationship, either to train them or just to, to get them aware of this? So talk about the activities that are there.
Yeah, so part of our task force, we have about half, well, it's a little less than half is law enforcement partners, but the rest are private companies and private people. Some of those are small business owners. They just want to be a part of our task force. And as part of that, we are there. We're there to engage. We're there to educate. We offer training exercises or even just presentations to, like, say, the Chamber of Commerce or to municipalities or to schools. You name it. So if you ask, we'll try to make it happen. We can do that virtually. We try to do it in person if we can. Just, it seems like it's a little bit more received a little better. But that's one thing we try to do is just education for the whole world. And we probably need to do a better job of that. But that's one of our goals is to try to train everyone.
And I would say as a CISO, the other asset I really appreciate is DHS CISA. They have such great educational material. You can go steal data from them for your policies. They have exercises. You can go pull their exercise material, tailor it for your organization. They have workshops. They've done so much work. I'm a huge fan of plagiarism. Somebody smarter than me has done most of the things I'll do in my life. And this is an opportunity for you to go just pull in all the knowledge that they've got out on their resources as well.
Steve, Derek, thank you so much for joining me. It was a great discussion, and I look forward to our next session. Thank you.
Thanks, boss. Appreciate it.
Thanks.